That night, a violent snowstorm was swallowing the city of Chicago. Freezing wind hurled sheets of ice against the windows of the Crown Haven Grand, while inside the lobby, crystal chandeliers cast a warm golden glow over polished marble floors. Guests in designer coats crossed the entrance with effortless confidence. Bell attendants bowed politely, servers carried trays of champagne, and a small orchestra prepared for the investors' gala scheduled to take place on the highest floor later that evening. Everything about the Crown Haven Grand had been designed to make people feel as though money could keep the cold, inconvenience, and sorrow of the outside world from ever crossing its doors. Then a black man entered the lobby carrying a little girl who was barely conscious against his shoulder. His coat was soaked, snow and mud clung to his worn leather shoes, an old backpack hung from his back, and his right hand gripped the handle of a small purple suitcase belonging to the child. The man's name was Marcus Reed. He was 42 years old, a single father, and the parent of 7-year-old Amara, who lay curled against his chest with a fever. Judging by their exhausted appearance, no one in the lobby could have imagined that Marcus was the founder of Crown Haven Hotels, a multi-billion-dollar luxury chain with more than 40 properties across the United States. Even fewer would have believed that the building they were standing in belonged to him. Several employees watched suspiciously as Marcus approached the front desk. Amara's breathing was shallow and uneven. The storm had canceled their flight, and their rental car had broken down nearly a mile away. Marcus had carried his daughter through heavy snow, hoping only to find a warm room where she could rest and use the portable nebulizer inside his backpack. Behind the desk stood Claire Whitmore, the evening front office manager. She was around 30, with carefully arranged blonde hair, a perfectly tailored uniform, and a polished brass name tag. It took her only a few seconds to look from Marcus's dirty shoes to his tired face. She then informed him that the hotel had no available rooms. Marcus did not argue immediately. He glanced at the booking screen behind the desk. Even from where he stood, he recognized the green indicators marking rooms that had not been occupied. He had helped design Crown Haven's reservation system and understood those symbols better than nearly anyone in the building. The hotel was not full. At least 17 rooms remained open. Marcus gently set down Amara's suitcase, took out his phone and credit card, and asked Claire to check again. She did not even touch the keyboard. Her expression remained cold as she indicated that the remaining rooms were reserved for important guests attending the investors' gala. At that exact moment, a white couple approached the neighboring counter. They had no reservation either, but within minutes another receptionist greeted them warmly and handed them keys to an upgraded suite. Marcus watched in silence. Some insults never need to be spoken aloud. They reveal themselves in the way one person is welcomed while another is treated like a problem before anyone has heard his story. Marcus had known that feeling many times. Before he became a successful businessman, he had grown up in a cramped rental neighborhood in Detroit. His mother worked 2 jobs, and his father died when Marcus was young. Store employees once followed him through expensive shops simply because they assumed he might steal something. Landlords denied him apartments even when he had enough money for the deposit. Years later, when he began building Crown Haven, several investors automatically assumed that the young black man standing before them must be the founder's assistant rather than the founder himself. Those experiences were precisely why Marcus and his late wife Naomi created the first principle of their hotel company. Every guest who entered Crown Haven should be treated like a loved one returning home. Yet tonight, inside the hotel built from their dream, Marcus was being treated as though he did not deserve to be there. He removed a black metal card from his wallet. It was a lifetime founder's card created during Crown Haven's earliest years. Only 3 had ever existed. One belonged to Marcus, one had belonged to Naomi, and the third was being preserved for Amara when she became old enough to understand what it represented. Claire studied the card for a few seconds and decided that it was counterfeit. She did not scan it. She did not contact management. She did not consult the protected guest list. She looked at Marcus once more, as though his wet clothes and the color of his skin were enough to prove that he could not possibly possess anything valuable. Amara began to cough. At first it was only a small sound, but then her body tightened in her father's arms and her breathing became quicker. Marcus hurriedly placed her in a chair near the desk and opened the backpack to find her nebulizer. The disturbance drew the attention of several nearby guests. Claire showed no concern for the child. She seemed more worried that the scene was damaging the elegant image of the lobby. She called security. Bradley Shaw, the hotel's head of security, arrived with 2 guards. He was tall, closely cropped, dressed in a dark suit, and carried a radio at his belt. He looked at Marcus as though the proper response had already been decided before he heard a single detail. Bradley never asked whether Amara needed a doctor. He ordered Marcus to collect his belongings and leave the hotel. Marcus struggled to remain calm. All he wanted was a warm corner where he could help his daughter breathe. He also understood that revealing his identity would immediately change everything. The staff would apologize, open the finest suite, summon a doctor, and treat Amara like royalty. But Marcus did not want to know how they would treat billionaire Marcus Reed. He wanted to know how they treated an ordinary father who appeared to have no money, status, or power behind him. Sometimes a person's true nature appears only when they believe the individual standing before them has no ability to fight back. An older female employee emerged from the service corridor. Her name was Evelyn Brooks, and she had worked for Crown Haven for nearly 25 years. Evelyn noticed the black metal card on the counter, and her face changed instantly. Most newer employees knew Marcus only as a name appearing in old company documents, but Evelyn was different. She had worked at the first 12-room inn Marcus and Naomi opened 13 years earlier. She had watched the young couple paint walls, replace sheets, repair broken furniture, and personally serve breakfast to each guest. Evelyn recognized Marcus. She started walking toward the desk, but a cold voice stopped her. Grant Holloway, the general manager of the Crown Haven Grand, had just stepped out of the elevator. Grant was in his 50s, with silver hair, a custom-tailored suit, and a watch worth several years of Evelyn's salary. He had controlled the property during the 3 years Marcus withdrew from daily operations to care for Amara following Naomi's death. Grant noticed Evelyn moving toward Marcus and immediately ordered her back to work. He did not ask who Marcus was. He didn't inspect the card. He did not care that the child was struggling to breathe. Grant saw a plainly dressed man and a sick child causing inconvenience on the night the hotel was preparing to welcome hundreds of wealthy investors. He ordered security to remove them. Evelyn objected, and Grant threatened to fire her if she interfered again. In that moment, Marcus understood that the problem was not limited to an inexperienced receptionist. The entire system had decayed. From the employee behind the desk to the executive in the corner office, they had learned to measure human worth through clothing, occupation, wealth, and skin color. Marcus still did not reveal who he was. He lifted Amara, collected their things, and walked toward the door. At that moment, a young bell attendant rushed forward. His name was Isaiah Bennett. He was 24 and had worked at the hotel for only 7 months. Isaiah brought Amara a cup of warm water, took a clean blanket from the baggage cart, and offered to let the 2 of them rest in the employee area until she recovered. Isaiah did not know Marcus owned the hotel. He had no reason to believe helping 2 strangers would benefit him. He simply saw a child in distress. Kindness often begins with something that simple. It does not need to know whether the person receiving it is rich or poor. It only requires someone brave enough not to look away. Grant ordered Isaiah to return to his station. When the young man continued wrapping the blanket around Amara, Grant suspended him for disobeying management. He then turned toward Evelyn and fired her in the middle of the lobby for disrupting operations. The only 2 employees who had tried to help a sick child lost their jobs within 5 minutes. Claire remained behind the front desk, visibly tense but silent. Marcus noticed her hands trembling. That detail told him something was wrong. People who truly believe they are doing the right thing rarely look that frightened. Bradley escorted Marcus and Amara through the revolving doors. The wind struck them immediately. Marcus carried his daughter beneath the covered service entrance, activated the battery-powered nebulizer, and wrapped Isaiah's blanket tightly around her shoulders. Her breathing slowly became steadier. Amara did not cry because they had been forced outside. What upset her most was the belief that she had caused trouble for her father. Marcus held her closer. In the 3 years since Naomi died, Amara had tried to appear much stronger than her age. She knew her father often stayed awake at night because he missed her mother. She also knew he had declined major business meetings to attend school performances, drive her to medical appointments, and sit beside her bed whenever her asthma returned. Marcus had built an empire, but after losing Naomi, he realized no success mattered if his only daughter grew up feeling abandoned. He transferred daily control to the board and remained only a distant supervisor. That absence created an opening Grant Holloway and Crown Haven Executive Vice President Malcolm Voss quietly exploited. For months, Marcus had received anonymous letters alleging that the Crown Haven Grand discriminated against minority guests, manipulated employee wages, and threatened workers who attempted to report abuse. He had been unable to verify the sender. The board repeatedly assured him that the accusations were fabricated. His trip to Chicago was therefore not only connected to a memorial for Naomi. Marcus also intended to inspect the hotel without warning. He never imagined the investigation would begin with his own daughter being driven into a snowstorm. After being forced out of the building, Evelyn and Isaiah found Marcus near the service entrance. Evelyn told him what had happened during the years he was absent. Grant had created an internal scoring system called the Guest Compatibility Index. On paper, it was presented as a tool for analyzing spending potential and customer preferences. In practice, it ranked guests according to residential address, occupation, clothing, transportation, spending history, and several hidden criteria. Every employee understood those unspoken factors included race, accent, nationality, and physical appearance. Guests who received low scores were told the hotel was full, required to pay unusually high deposits, or closely followed by security from the moment they entered. No document explicitly described it as discrimination. Management called it protecting the brand. Evelyn had reported the system. In return, she was demoted from housekeeping supervisor to night cleaner. Grant then placed her on undesirable shifts and repeatedly searched for reasons to force her to resign. Evelyn also revealed that the hotel had many available rooms. Grant had intentionally held them back to sell at triple price to investors attending the gala. Guests considered insufficiently elegant were rejected, while wealthy visitors could still secure rooms immediately. Marcus asked about the gala. Evelyn looked around carefully before revealing something even more dangerous. On the top floor, Malcolm Voss was preparing to announce the sale of the Crown Haven Grand to an overseas investment fund. Marcus had never approved the transaction. According to company rules, the sale of any flagship property required the signature of the founder or the legal representative of the Reed family. Malcolm had told the board that Marcus was no longer capable of managing corporate affairs after Naomi's death. He was using a medical power of attorney to claim Marcus had transferred his voting rights to the board. Marcus immediately knew the document was forged. He had never signed anything of that kind. That meant the gala was not merely a party. It was the moment Malcolm and Grant intended to steal the hotel. Before Marcus could decide what to do next, Bradley appeared at the service entrance with 2 guards. He announced that a VIP guest had reported a missing wallet containing cash and an expensive watch. Because Marcus had stood near the front desk, Bradley insisted on searching his backpack. Marcus recognized the trap immediately. He did not resist when Bradley opened it. Beneath Amara's clothes, the guard found a black leather wallet. Evelyn was stunned. Isaiah protested. Bradley immediately called the police. Grant watched through the glass doors with a satisfied expression. Marcus could have revealed his identity at that moment. One phone call would have ended the game. He remained silent because he wanted to understand how deep the conspiracy reached and whether anyone inside the hotel still possessed enough courage to stand beside the truth. Nobody noticed the small tablet Amara held against her chest. Earlier, she had used it to record the snowstorm outside the windows. While the security officers searched their belongings, the device continued filming. The video captured one of Bradley's subordinates placing the wallet inside Marcus's backpack while Marcus was helping Amara breathe. The child did not understand the significance of what she had recorded, but her innocent curiosity preserved the evidence powerful people had intended to erase. When police officers arrived, Claire suddenly left the front desk and ran toward the entrance. She asked them to stop. It was the first time that evening she openly defied Grant. She admitted that Marcus had never approached the wallet and revealed that Bradley had ordered the front desk cameras disabled for exactly 4 minutes. Grant immediately fired her. Then the first major secret emerged. Claire was the person who had been sending anonymous letters to Marcus. A year earlier, she had been forced to turn away a black mother and her son after they left a hospital because the woman's credit card did not have a high enough limit. Snow had been falling that night too. The mother and child slept in their vehicle, and the boy was readmitted to the hospital the following morning. Claire never forgot it. She began collecting evidence about the Guest Compatibility Index, but Grant discovered what she was doing and threatened to destroy her professional record. He also knew Claire supported a seriously ill younger brother and depended on company health insurance. Terrified of losing everything, she continued following orders. She sent anonymous reports but lacked the courage to identify herself publicly. That night, while watching Amara struggle to breathe, Claire realized she was repeating the very mistake that had haunted her for a year. Some people are not entirely cruel, yet fear turns them into instruments of cruelty. Courage does not always mean never having remained silent. Sometimes it is the moment a frightened person finally decides not to remain silent any longer. Marcus showed police the recording on Amara's tablet. Bradley was detained for attempting to plant evidence, but Grant had already disappeared upstairs, where Malcolm was preparing to complete the sale. Claire revealed that less than 2 hours remained before the contract was signed. She also explained that Malcolm had kept the founder's presidential suite locked for 2 years. Employees were forbidden to enter, and every camera on the floor had been disconnected. Marcus understood they were searching for something inside that room. The Crown Haven Grand was not only the most valuable property in the chain. It was also the place Naomi had spent her final years designing. Naomi had not come from wealth. She was an interior architect who first met Marcus while he was repairing the electrical system of an aging roadside inn. Together they imagined a place that could be luxurious without feeling cold, beautiful without making poor people feel they did not belong. The presidential suite was Naomi's final tribute to that vision. A private safe inside it contained the original company charter, family voting documents, and the Reed inheritance records. Marcus, Claire, Evelyn, and Isaiah re-entered the building through a staff entrance. Marcus carried Amara on his back, still wrapped in Isaiah's blanket. They reached the top floor through a service elevator. In the hallway outside the presidential suite, Marcus discovered that the plaque bearing Naomi's name had been removed from the door. That loss hurt more than any insult he had suffered downstairs. Grant and Malcolm did not merely want to steal the property, they wanted to erase the woman who had created the soul of the hotel. Marcus entered a code based on Amara's birthday. The door opened. The suite had been stripped. Paintings were gone, cabinets had been emptied, and the safe behind the mirror stood open. Every document had disappeared. Grant had reached it first. For several minutes, hope seemed to collapse. Without the original charter, Marcus would struggle to stop the transaction before Malcolm signed. The forged power of attorney was still being treated as valid, and most board members believed Marcus had willingly withdrawn from the company. Amara noticed a small wooden jewelry box lying on the floor. It had belonged to Naomi. Nothing remained inside except an old velvet lining. But Amara remembered her mother once telling her that the most important things were rarely hidden in the first place people looked. The girl pressed one corner beneath the box. A secret compartment opened. Inside was a small encrypted drive and a letter addressed to Amara. Naomi had known that people inside the company were trying to seize control. Before her death, she secretly copied every legal document and transferred 12% of the company's voting shares into a trust for her daughter. Marcus had never known. Naomi kept it secret because she feared anyone aware of those shares might consider Amara a target. The drive contained copies of the contracts, ownership records, and a video of Naomi establishing the trust in front of an attorney. Then another shock emerged. In the letter, Naomi explained that the strongest opponent of selling Crown Haven had not been Marcus. It had been her. 2 months before her death, Naomi discovered that Malcolm and Grant were using shell companies to drain money from the hotel. She was preparing to report them to the board when her condition suddenly deteriorated. Following her funeral, Malcolm used Marcus's grief to push him away from daily operations. What Marcus believed was time devoted to his daughter was also the period during which others quietly took control of the company. Isaiah then revealed that his father had once served as the hotel's chief maintenance engineer. A year earlier, he discovered millions of dollars in repair invoices paid to companies that did not exist. When he tried to report them, Grant fired him and blacklisted him throughout the industry. Before leaving, Isaiah's father copied all the financial records onto a separate drive. Isaiah had preserved them for months because he didn't know whom he could trust. Naomi's files proved ownership. Isaiah's files proved embezzlement. Claire possessed evidence of discrimination. Amara had recorded the planted wallet. Evelyn had witnessed the internal orders. The people who had been treated as powerless were now holding every piece of the truth. Grant soon realized they were on the upper floor. He locked the elevators, cut power to the section, and ordered loyal security officers to block the exits. Marcus and the others were trapped inside the dark hallway. Below them, the investors' gala began. Malcolm stood on stage before hundreds of guests and announced that the Crown Haven Grand was about to enter a new era. A giant screen behind him displayed the logo of the foreign fund preparing to acquire the property. The contract was waiting on the table. Only minutes remained before it would be signed. In the upper hallway, Isaiah remembered an old maintenance passage his father had designed. It connected the presidential suite to the audiovisual control room behind the ballroom. The passage was narrow and had not been used for years. Marcus could not safely carry Amara through it. Evelyn offered to remain with the child while Marcus, Isaiah, and Claire descended. Amara refused to be left behind. She understood that the hotel had once been her mother's dream. She also knew the drive in her hands could protect what Naomi had created. They began moving down a service stairwell together. Halfway down, Amara suffered another asthma attack. Marcus stopped immediately. In that instant, he faced a choice between rushing downstairs to save the hotel or remaining beside his daughter. Marcus chose Amara without hesitation. He sat on the step, helped her use the nebulizer, and forgot completely about the contract that was moments from being signed. Isaiah watched and understood why Marcus was different from the people controlling the corporation. Malcolm and Grant placed property above human beings. Marcus was willing to lose the entire empire rather than abandon his daughter. A person may build many hotels, but the way that person treats the vulnerable determines whether they have truly built a home. Once Amara's breathing stabilized, the group continued downward. They entered the control room seconds before Malcolm placed his pen on the contract. Isaiah connected Naomi's drive and his father's financial records to the projection system. The enormous screen behind the stage suddenly went black. Then the evidence appeared. First came the Guest Compatibility Index and the hidden criteria used to reject black guests, immigrants, and low-income families. Next came false invoices, financial transfers, and the shell company network connecting Grant and Malcolm. Then the video showed a security employee placing the stolen wallet inside Marcus's backpack. Finally, Naomi appeared on the screen. In the recorded statement, she confirmed Amara's trust and explained that the family voting rights could not be transferred without the consent of the Reed family. The ballroom fell silent. Malcolm ordered the staff to cut the signal. Marcus stepped onto the stage before they could do it. His coat still carried stains from snow and mud. One hand held Amara's, the other held the Black Founders card. Several long-serving board members recognized him immediately. Whispers spread across the room. The man who had been denied a room, pushed into the snow, and falsely accused of theft was the owner of the hotel. Claire stood before the guests and admitted what she had done. She explained how employees had been ordered to classify human beings according to appearance, and confessed that she had remained silent out of fear. Evelyn arrived carrying handwritten records of guests who had been rejected. Isaiah displayed his father's financial files. Grant attempted to blame his subordinates. He claimed Claire had refused guests on her own, and Bradley had acted without instructions. The emails shown on the screen proved that Grant had personally ordered the rooms to be held, adjusted the scoring system, and demanded the dismissal of anyone who objected. Malcolm was exposed as the person who forged Marcus's power of attorney. Even then, he believed he still had a chance. Malcolm argued that Marcus had already lost his voting rights and that the shares in Amara's trust could not be activated because she was still a child. That was when the final twist emerged. Naomi had appointed Evelyn as the independent guardian of Amara's voting rights. In the event Marcus was falsely declared incapable or removed from the company through manipulation, the woman Grant had just fired from a housekeeping position was the person holding the decisive vote over the future of the Crown Haven Grand. Evelyn had kept the secret for 3 years in accordance with Naomi's instructions. She was allowed to reveal it only when Amara's inheritance was directly threatened. In front of the entire ballroom, Evelyn exercised the trust's voting power and rejected the sale. The contract became invalid. The remaining board members quickly voted to suspend Malcolm, Grant, and everyone connected to the conspiracy. Police officers and financial investigators had already been summoned before the presentation began. Bradley was arrested for planting evidence and obstructing an investigation. Grant was detained for embezzlement, systematic discrimination, retaliation, and conspiracy to falsify corporate records. Malcolm became the subject of a major fraud investigation involving forged authorization documents and attempted theft of corporate assets. Marcus did not turn the night into a spectacle of blind revenge. He did not fire every employee. He understood that some people had actively committed wrongdoing, some had remained silent for personal advantage, and others had been frightened into obedience because no system existed to protect them. Claire was suspended during the investigation and later allowed to remain because she had provided evidence and accepted responsibility for her actions. She agreed to begin again in a lower position and help create a genuine anti-discrimination process. Evelyn was restored to her former rank. She refused the general manager position because she did not want her compassion transformed into another symbol of authority. Instead, she became director of employee protection, reporting outside local management and receiving complaints directly from workers. Isaiah joined the internal audit department. His father was cleared of wrongdoing and invited back as a technical consultant. The guest compatibility index was permanently abolished. Crown Haven ordered independent audits across every property in the chain. Every suspicious rejection of a guest was reopened for review. Marcus created a program called Naomi's Haven. Each hotel was required to reserve several rooms for families trapped by natural disasters, medical emergencies, or unexpected crises. Those rooms could never be resold at inflated prices, and no guest would be required to prove they were wealthy enough to deserve help. Employees who reported discrimination received formal protection from retaliation. Every new manager had to spend time working alongside cleaners, bell attendants, kitchen staff, and maintenance workers before receiving full authority. Marcus understood how easily people in luxurious offices forgot what happened at reception desks, service corridors, and the hidden rooms where invisible employees worked every day. A system does not become compassionate merely because its leader gives beautiful speeches. It changes only when the least powerful people can speak without fearing that the system will crush them. Later that night, after the ballroom had grown quiet, Marcus took Amara to the presidential suite. The room Naomi designed contained only a few remaining pieces of furniture. Marcus restored the plaque bearing his wife's name to the door. Amara sat on the bed, still wrapped in Isaiah's blanket. On the table near the window lay two objects. One was Marcus's black metal founder's card. The other was Isaiah's small employee name tag. One represented ownership and authority. The other proved that kindness does not need to know the identity of the person it helps. Marcus stared at them for a long time. The first could make an entire hotel bow. The second revealed what Naomi had wanted Crown Haven to become from the very beginning. Several months later, on another cold and rainy night, a black family entered the lobby. The father wore old work clothes. The mother carried a sleeping child. They had no reservation and appeared uneasy inside the luxurious space. Evelyn was passing through the lobby. She stopped, welcomed them personally, and asked the staff to prepare a warm room. Nobody asked what kind of car they drove. Nobody stared at their dirty shoes. Nobody decided their value before hearing their story. On the wall behind the front desk hung a photograph of Marcus, Naomi, and Amara, taken on the day they opened their first hotel. Beneath it was the principle that had once been forgotten and was finally restored. Every guest deserves to be treated like a loved one returning home. Marcus had entered his own hotel as a stranger. He had been judged, rejected, and framed because the people before him believed he possessed no power. In the end, the hotel was not saved only by its billionaire owner. It was saved by those considered least important: a housekeeper, a bell attendant, a frightened receptionist, and a 7-year-old girl. Power can allow a person to give orders. Money can make others lower their heads. But only character can inspire people to remain beside us when everything appears lost. Sometimes the greatest lesson is not that a wealthy man reclaimed his hotel. It is that a door once closed by prejudice was finally open to everyone.